all medical debt currently in collections in the first Congressional District of Michigan, which totals more than 2 million. I don't know, that might be kind of, you might not have heard that title, but that's really kind of the long-term goal, Valorie, I'm sure. So our presenter today is Valorie Troesch. She's a retired attorney who has worked in many capacities at Michigan Tech. Currently, she is a volunteer for several local organizations, including court-ordered mediation services for UPCAP, Barbara Gundlach Women's Shelter, Royale National Park Archives, Keweenaw Indivisible, and the League of Women Voters of the Copper Country. She is also an active member of the Houghton County Democratic Party, has run for local office 3 times, and I was her campaign manager for the first time, and works with other candidates running for state, local, and federal office. After her presentation, we'll have time for Q&A. You can put questions in the chat or just wait until the end and just raise your hand. So, Valorie, thank you so much for being here on a Sunday morning. Thanks all of our participants for being here, and we're looking forward to your presentation. Take it away.
Okay, thanks, Joan. First of all, I have to apologize that I can't run my video and my audio at the same time on the weak internet connection that I have. So sometimes people get a little upset that they can't see me when I'm talking, but there isn't anything that I can do about it. So I apologize for it, and we'll just have to. Dave was kind enough to add a picture of me in the slide there, so we have that instead. Anyway, again, thanks for inviting me, and I'm looking forward to sharing this project with you. So this is a project that was a joint effort, Stronger Together, a joint effort between Keweenaw Indivisible and Undue Medical Debt. Before I actually get into that, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about what those 2 organizations are. Next slide. So Keweenaw Indivisible, and many of you may know this, but it's affiliated with the National Indivisible organization, and that national organization is a 501c4 organization, nonprofit. Indivisible is a grassroots social movement that is fighting for progressive values. And in particular, our local Indivisible, Keweenaw Indivisible, is committed to building community and taking tangible action to support family, friends, and neighbors. Keweenaw Indivisible is a new organization. It was formed just in the spring of 2025. Next slide. Undue Medical Debt has been around since 2014, and one of the things that I was surprised by is really how few people have heard of this organization. But more and more people are going to hear about it and going to know what great things they are doing. Undue Medical Debt is a national 501c3 nonprofit, so donations to Undue Medical Debt are tax deductible. It was formerly known as RIP Medical Debt, and interestingly enough, it was founded in 2014 by former debt collection executives. Its mission is to strengthen communities by erasing the financial burden of medical debt. And by 2023, Undue Medical Debt had erased over $10 billion in medical debt in the United States. They have eligibility criteria for people who are able to have their medical debt erased. And the 2 principal criteria are, first of all, the individuals have to be at or below 400% of the federal poverty line, or they have to have medical debt that exceeds 5% of their income. Undue Medical Debt works in this way. It acquires medical debt that is either in collections or that is about to go to collections. And when Joan introduced me, she said that I was going to talk about erasing medical debt that's in collections, and that's a really important condition. it is only because when medical debt gets to the point where it's being sent to a collection agency or about to be sent to a collection agency, it's at that point that it becomes very cheap for a place like either collection agencies or Undue Medical Debt to acquire that debt. And Undue Medical Debt can then buy that medical debt for roughly $1 will buy $100 worth of medical debt. So that's how they acquire so much medical debt at such cheap prices. But it's important to know that they're not getting all medical debt that exists in the country. They're only getting this debt that is either in collections or at the point of going to collections. Once Undue Medical Debt acquires the debt, they go through a process of identifying individuals that are eligible to have the debt erased. And when they have identified those individuals, then Undue Medical Debt sends every individual a personal letter telling them the amount of debt that's been erased and that it has been done, and that there are no, for instance, tax consequences to them as a result of this. Again, when we started this, I was really surprised at how many people had not heard of Undue Medical Debt. So when Keweenaw Indivisible formed in the spring of this year, as I said, one of the things that it's part of its mission is to really be active in the community and to do tangible things that make a difference in people's lives. And so we were looking for a project. And I had actually known about Undue Medical Debt back in the day when it was still called RIP Medical Debt, but wasn't really sure what to do with it. But at the time, in the spring of this year, with the confluence of both the existence of medical debt and the fact that we were facing federal legislation that was threatening to really impact the ability of many people to access quality health care, I suggested that we do some kind of a fundraiser that could raise money to pay off medical debt, working with Undue Medical Debt organization. And Keweenaw Indivisible got really excited about that. And so the consequence was that they agreed to do this. We formed a committee, and so we moved forward with this. Next slide. So we identified that the problem that we wanted to initially address in our community was medical debt. Next slide. Undue Medical Debt has published on its website, and I encourage everybody to go there. Just Google Undue Medical Debt, and you'll find just a wealth of information. But they've conducted a survey of people with medical debt. And among the things that they've learned is that 60% of people with medical debt has negative impacts on their mental health. 42% have negative impacts on their self-worth. 49% revert to options like trying to find their symptoms online. 48% attempt to self-treat their symptoms. 26% reduce or skip their prescriptions. 49%, nearly half, skip seeing their doctor, and 39% report a decreased ability to fight their illness. Next slide. And these are just some important facts that we need to keep in mind. 3 out of 4 people with medical debt have an annual income of less than $60,000. Now, a long time ago, $60,000 was a good income, but these days, that's a pretty moderate income. Now, the next fact here, I think, is just stunning. 90% of Americans carry health insurance, but 68% of the people who have health insurance carry medical debt. So what that means is that in this country, medical insurance itself is not a guarantor that a person will not have medical debt. Carrying medical debt means having to choose between making payments to collections or to the hospital or to the doctor versus paying for housing and food and other family expenses. And medical debt is the prime driver of personal bankruptcy in the United States. Next slide. Again, bottom line, people with medical debt did nothing wrong. They just got sick. And I think that's an important thing for us to remember. Next slide. So part of Keweenaw Indivisible's goal here was not just to pay off medical debt, to erase medical debt for people, but it was also to draw attention to the fact that medical care for many people is coming under threat. And then even to take that to a step beyond, which is to advocate for universal health care in this country. So in this slide, you see a list of 30-some countries that have universal health care. And you can also see the years in which they adopted universal health care. And what's really surprising is that in some of these countries, the universal health care became a fact for them, for their residents, even before World War II. So they've been doing this for a long time. And in most of the other countries, universal health care exists easily back into the 1960s and the 1970s. The United States, however, is not among these 30-some countries. And medical debt is a uniquely American injustice. Next slide. So how much medical debt is there, both in the United States and in Michigan? So according to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, 100 million Americans owe $220 billion in medical debt. So just about 1 in every 3 Americans, because there's only about, the US population is about 340 million. So 1 out of 3 owe medical debt. In Michigan, 700,000 adults owe medical debt and must choose between paying that debt or simply putting food on the table, or paying their utility bills, or paying their rent. Some of you may have read that about maybe 3-4 weeks ago or so, in Michigan, Governor Whitmer announced that the state of Michigan was going to use $4.5 million from its 2024 budget, and that would erase $144 million worth of medical debt for 200,000 Michiganders. And they were working with Undue Medical Debt to do this. And so that's something that is happened during the month of July and is probably ongoing now. But that only represents a percentage of the medical debt in Michigan. So there's still a lot more to be done, but that's a good start. So next slide. The problem of medical debt is going to get worse. Next slide. In particular, one of the things that's going to have the biggest impact on access to health care, insurance, and that will likely increase medical debt is the, well, it's called the Big Beautiful Bill, but what I and many other people refer to as the bad budget busting billionaire bill that was passed on a national level back in July. Some of the impacts, and these are not exhaustive by any means, but some of the impacts on access to health care and health insurance that this bill will have in Michigan is, in Michigan, up to 237,000, almost 238,000 Michiganders could lose their Medicaid health care coverage in the next 10 years, next 9 years, by 2034. In the 1st Congressional District, that means almost 18,000 people will lose access to Medicaid. 186,600 Michiganders could lose their health insurance coverage under the Affordable Care Act by 2034. Again, in the first congressional district, that translates into 17,400 people. So between the loss of Medicaid and the loss of access to the ACA, 35,000 people in the first congressional district are likely to lose their health insurance coverage by 2034. 65 rural hospitals in Michigan that rely on Medicaid to fund emergency care, OB care, cancer treatments, and mental health support will be impacted. The cost to Michigan hospitals and doctors over the next 10 years is estimated to be $15 billion. And right now, no one knows where that money will be made up. One of the things that's going to have the most immediate impact is that people who are buying their health insurance through the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, will see an estimated 75% increase in their premiums starting next January. What's going to happen is premium notices start going out in October, and I believe have to go out by November 1st of this year for people that already are on the ACA. And there's going to be real sticker shock when people realize that their premiums are going to go up by 75%. And that's a national average estimate for increase in costs. And part of that is owing to a couple of reasons. First of all, the subsidies for purchasing insurance under the ACA, those subsidies were adopted during when COVID hit back in the early 2020s. Those subsidies are going away. Also, there will be an impact on expanded Medicaid. As a result, it's anticipated that 4.2 million Americans will, relatively healthy people, will drop out of the ACA market. And the consequence is, as this is how health insurance works. When healthy people drop out and aren't paying premiums, the less healthy people are left in, and that causes premiums to rise for everyone. So those two factors, the fact that healthy people will be dropping out, plus the subsidies are gone, are going to result in the 75% increase in the ACA premiums. Next slide. So we were looking at all of this, and that is how Stronger Together became a project for Keweenaw Indivisible. What is Stronger Together? Well, it is, because it's still ongoing, a fundraiser to erase all medical debt that is in collections in Congressional District 1 in Michigan. It is organized and led by Keweenaw Indivisible, and we're in partnership with Undue Medical Debt. Next slide. Our goals are, first, to raise a minimum of $15,000. The $15,000 figure came about because that's when Undue Medical Debt assists groups like ours in doing a fundraising project. That's the minimum that they set. So that's where the 15,000 came from. So that was the minimum that we had as a goal. It also, coincidentally, was that $15,000 was enough to erase all medical debt that's in collections in Congressional District 1 in Michigan, or about, as Joan said before, $2 million worth of debt in collections. The second goal was to raise awareness about the impacts of the Big Beautiful Bill on healthcare access, insurance availability, and medical costs in our community through impacts on Medicaid, the ACA, rural hospitals, nursing homes, etc. And then our third goal was to advocate for universal health care. Healthcare is a human right and not a commodity only for those who can afford it. Next slide. So you may have seen some of these posters around town. This is our Stronger Together flyer. We had fundraising efforts over several weeks and putting all of this together, but our culminating event took place on July 29th, so a couple of weeks ago, Tuesday evening at Small Craft in Hancock. We had, and this was, we had donated musicians who donated their talents. A couple of Bob Hiltonen and Bees and Bees all played music for us. We had 29 donated silent auction items. We had several speakers, and we had some food trucks and food available for everybody. So it was just a remarkable event, and I assume that many of you may have been there. So next slide. Something like this doesn't happen without a lot of people helping out, and we had many sponsors, promoters, and boosters. So Small Craft is normally closed on Tuesdays, but they opened the facility for us that evening and hosted the event. We had the Daily Mining Gazette had covered the event. Channel 6, or I'm not sure, not the CBS network out of Marquette, also gave us some television coverage about this. The League of Women Voters gave us great coverage. They advertised the event. Houghton County Democrats advertised the event. Sarah Green, and with her online Craig blog, also advertised. So we had a lot of promotion from many different people. One of the things that I wanted to talk a little bit about, because it was such, it was just a serendipity that this happened. I had contacted the chairs of all of the county Democratic parties in the entire Congressional District 1. And there's some 42 or 43 county parties. And through one of them, the Abdul El Sayed campaign learned about our work that we were doing, our Keweenaw Indivisible Stronger Together fundraising event. And so the campaign, Abdul El Sayed is a candidate, among others, a Democratic candidate in the running for the to replace Gary Peters. He's running for the Democratic nomination to be the Democrat that will run for Gary Peters' seat in 2016 or 2026. I'm sorry. Anyway, so his campaign manager contacted me and said that several years ago, Abdul had worked with Undue Medical Debt to eliminate medical debt in Wayne County, and they had eliminated a lot of medical debt through those efforts. And so I wanted to know what they could do to help us out. And I was a little suspicious at first, because I thought, well, what do we have to do? What will be the price that we have to pay for this? But shockingly, all they wanted to do was send an email to the Abdul El Sayed email list and say, look, Keweenaw Indivisible is doing this fundraiser to help erase medical debt in Congressional District 1. And they created their own sublink within our main fundraising page. And they included the link in their email and said, if you can, help these people get over the line. And that's all they wanted. And it was amazing. Just through those efforts alone, people from all over Michigan, not just in Congressional District 1, contributed another, the last time I checked, they had contributed almost $3,700 to the effort. So that was just a real serendipity to have that happen. So shout out to them for doing that for us. Next slide. And the other people, like I said, it takes a village. Other people that are involved and who deserve a great deal of gratitude here. The two people or organizations that served food that night was Peterson's Food Truck, Peterson's Fish Market, and Studio Pizza, both of whom those places are both ordinarily closed on Tuesdays. and they both opened, and just to be able to serve the people that came to the event. We have to thank all of the people that donated money, all the people that donated to the items to the silent auction. The silent auction included just a real, as we said, something for everybody. There was a real great array of items, anything from gift certificates to Fifth and Elm, to Fitzgerald's Restaurant, to the Edge Tattoo. There was various kinds of artwork. There was a mushroom hunt with Dana Richter. Joan Chatty, her famous dessert was an item. It was just, so there were a lot of different, just a vast array of things, and and everybody was very generous, and everything was sold. We had a number of speakers who talked to us that night. Sarah Green talked about some of the impacts of the Big Beautiful Bill and a call to action for everybody. Rob Stowe, who is the CEO of Baraga County Memorial Hospital, which incidentally is a hospital, unlike Aspirus and Portage, which are affiliated with much larger organizations. Baraga County Memorial Hospital is a standalone hospital. It's all on its own, and as a result, it stands to take a real hit from some of the things that are included in the federal budget. And then also we had an individual, Alyssa Forrest, talk to us because she's somebody who's going to lose her Medicaid assistance, and she talked about what the impact of that would be on her. As we had a number of organizations come and host tables at the event. So just passing out information, and some people had free things to give to people. So there were 5 different organizations there that did that. And then, as I mentioned earlier, Bob Hiltonen and the Bees and Bees all donated their talents and provided music that night for everybody. So it really took a great effort by a lot of people. And I want to, at this time, really acknowledge that, as I mentioned earlier, that there was a committee from Keweenaw Indivisible who was working on this. And the members of that committee were, and everybody, I mean, this is the hardest working committee that I've ever worked with. Amanda Schwass, Katie LaCrosse, Amy Weekly, Scott Moretto, and Alexander Morrison. So we met every week for several weeks leading up to the event, and everybody was in charge of doing something, and everybody did their job, and it all came together. It was really very gratifying. So what were the outcomes? Next slide. When we first started this, and I went to Keweenaw Indivisible after I had finally touched base with Undue Medical Debt, and I told them that we had to raise $15,000, a minimum, there were quite a few gasps in the audience. People really doubted that we were going to be able to do that. However, as you can see, so far, we have raised over $23,500 from over 400 individual donors from all across Michigan. And even though we raised, we had to raise a minimum of $15,000, the amount that we did raise is still, almost all of that is going to stay right in Congressional District 1 to pay off medical debt and collections, because Undue Medical Debt continuously acquires new medical debt. And so I will get the final figures probably this coming week from the person that we work with at Undue Medical Debt, and we'll find out exactly how much debt it's going to pay off, but the estimate is that it will be approximately $3 million that will be of medical debt that will be erased in Congressional District 1. So our first goal was to erase medical debt, but our second and third goals were to get people to talk about the problem of medical debt and to talk about ways that we can have a better system. And so I think that we are doing that. Next slide. One of the really important things, because it's kind of depressing when you think about how much medical debt is out there, and the fact that, again, working with undue medical debt, we're only able to erase medical debt that has gone so far that it's now in collections. I mean, just think about the amount of medical debt that people are still carrying and trying to pay off, and that hasn't gotten to that point yet. So the whole topic, and then when you think about what's going to happen as a consequence of this new federal budget bill, it can be kind of depressing. So our goal was at the fundraiser on July 29th is we wanted to leave people with hope, and we wanted to leave them with a message of action. So in terms of hope, yes, Medicaid and the ACA are going to be affected, but they are still in place. And it's important to realize that they haven't been disbanded, they haven't been dismantled. They are still operating. The changes that have been made, that will be made to both of those programs, are all reversible. And it's really important to remember that this opens an opportunity to make access to health care in the United States universal and affordable. So what are the action items? Well, as I said, all of these changes are reversible and actually can be made, our system can be made better. But the solution is political. And we may not believe it, are all part of that solution. We all have the ability to act politically. How do we do that? We have to show up, we have to speak up, we have to stand up and run for something, we have to vote, and we must not give up. We must not become complacent. We must not accept that these changes have now or will shortly go into effect and that that's the way things are. Next slide. So while we don't really have the prospect of universal health care on the federal level, at least not currently, there is something happening in Michigan, which all of us can take a part in advocating for and contacting our representatives and urging them to support. Just in July, Representative Carrie Reingans, along with others, introduced in the Michigan legislature a bill to support for My Care. This would be universal health care coverage for all Michiganders. It would cover all Michigan residents, would cover hospitalizations, mental health, dental, reproductive health, drugs, 100% of everything that's associated with medical care. It's expected, if this bill passes, to result in a net savings of $20 billion for people in Michigan. It would eliminate out-of-pocket costs such as co-pays, co-insurance, deductibles, and large medical expenses. It would eliminate the caps that exist on medical care. And it would pull insurance companies out of our medical decision, preserve provider choice. It would make Michigan businesses more competitive by not making businesses distinguish between who provides medical insurance to employees and who does not. And it would be funded through a progressive taxation and through existing spending. The My Care bill is House Bill 4407. As I said, it was introduced by Representative Reingans and 22 others, including Betsy Kofia, who was in the Traverse City area and CD1. And it's been endorsed by a number of agencies. And I've got the website there for people that want to find out more information about this. But this bill has been introduced before and hasn't passed. But in light of where we are, this is kind of a crossroads, I think, in terms of thinking about what kind of country, what kind of state do we want to be in terms of the healthcare that we provide for our Michiganders and just residents in our country. Okay, next slide. So this is my last slide, and for those who are interested, we are open until August 15th. That is when the Stronger Together fundraising event will officially close, and persons who are interested in donating can donate online. You can use this QR code. There's an online link that's provided here. Or if some people want to send a check, the check can be made payable to Undue Medical Debt, and you can mail it to me at my address that's shown there, P.O. Box 141, Dollar Bay. As I said, the online donations will close on August 15th. And at that time, we'll know exactly how much money we have raised and how much medical debt we are able to, in collections, that we're able to pay off. So that is everything that I have to say, and I'm happy to answer any questions to the best that I'm able anyway.